The morning began with the click of the coffee machine and the anxious beep of his smartphone. Henry walked down to the kitchen in a t-shirt from a 6-year-old startup, touched the screen of the coffee machine, and placed a mug under the spout. Alexa on the bar counted down the minutes for the egg cooker and, as always, turned on the news, despite his request for silence. "Alexa, stop," Henry said, "and set the timer for 8 minutes." "The timer is for 8 minutes," the speaker replied. Sarah walked into the kitchen dressed for the office, a simple shirt dress, her hair pulled back. She worked in human resources for a company that was constantly laying off people and then hiring again. Her face was calm, her eyes tired. They had been together for 15 years, and every morning like this was the same. Henry knew how she would press her lips together as she took the Greek yogurt out of the fridge, how she would keep quiet about the fact that he had forgotten to take out the trash again. "Are you taking out the trash later?" she asked, as expected. "Of course," he replied, already feeling irritated by his own "of course." A word that meant nothing, a small lie in case he forgot. Sarah put the yogurt in a bowl and added the granola. "You came back late yesterday. Are you on fire with the investor again?" "Not a fire, a conversation." Henry poured himself some coffee. "We were discussing the prototype." "The one that will change the world?" Sarah asked without a smile. "Yes, it will really change the rules. People are tired of empty promises of insurance. They need a tool that will bring order." Sarah shrugged. "People need vacations and better insurance." He didn't argue. Morning conversations were rarely productive. They exchanged short sentences like accounting lines. "Got coffee?" "Who's taking the car in for an mott?" "When's the mortgage payment due?" And more often, Henry found himself despising this precision. Schedules, lists, lines, insurance. He had come up with a startup to escape what he considered a sluggish routine. But the routine came back through another window. Marriage, bills, schedules. The idea didn't come out of thin air. A year ago, he started recognizing emotions in video, a side project between consultations. Camera, microphones, a set of standard models. At first, it was fun. The system distinguished joy, tiredness, confusion. Then Henry added speech analysis pauses, voice pitch, trembling on consonants. It turned out to be interesting. The output showed the probability of deviation from the truth. He did not choose another word. "I'll be back later tonight," Sarah said, glancing at her watch. "The team is discussing a new insurance program. It'll be a long one." "Okay," he replied, and realized that his tone sounded like he was signing a paper. Sarah was already putting on her jacket when she turned around. "And please don't leave your laptops on the living room table. Last time, my friend's kids spilled juice on them. It was awkward." "I'll move it to the office," Henry said. She nodded, picked up her bag, and left. The door slammed softly, as always. The egg timer counted down to 8 minutes, and Alexa announced it a little more cheerfully than necessary. Henry ate the eggs alone and opened his laptop. The document was called Frank, Home Lie Detector. The name came to him immediately clear, short, with a promise of directness. Under the title was written, "Revolution of Honesty." He tried for a long time to change the slogan, but each time he returned to this. The document contained notes on the technical part, a microcomputer, a wide-angle camera, 4 microphones, and local processing. The second section was a user scenario: calm voice, clear backlight, green honesty, yellow uncertainty, red rejection. History with the ability to listen to an audio fragment. The third section was legal risks. This section was the shortest and therefore looked more honest than the others. He closed his laptop, put on a hoodie, and drove to the co-working space. The 101 was busy. The Tesla sped up and slowed down again. In these jams, people looked at their phones, listened to productivity podcasts, and silently cursed. Henry drove the car on autopilot and repeated the pitch in his head. A home lie detector as a family communication tool. Not a police interrogation, but a coach who helps you speak up. The co-working space smelled of wood, coffee, and antiseptic. Priya, his old friend and researcher at the speech technology lab, was already sitting at her desk, surrounded by wires and sensors. I pulled up a new data set on micropauses, she said by way of greeting. There are annotations in there where people are embellishing. I'm not sure if that's the same as lying, but there is a correlation. That's enough for us, Henry replied. I want to build a prototype that I can put in the kitchen and turn on out of the box. Priya raised an eyebrow skeptically. To the kitchen. Are you serious? Yes, that's where people take their little stories. That's where they say, I've already eaten, or I don't care. If the system can handle the kitchen, it can handle anything. Do you realize that there are Alexa and Google Home in the kitchens? She asked. There are enough microphones there as it is. That's why. I'm thinking about integration, later. Priya looked at him intently. Integration with a voice assistant is convenient, but legally it's scary, and ethically too. Henry shrugged. Convenience wins. Always. People will agree to a camera in their doorbell and sensors in their thermostat. They will agree to honesty if it is easy. If honesty is on their side, Priya said softly. Today, a wife asks her husband if he loves her friend. Tomorrow, what? A real-time interrogation? He didn't answer. He had heard the question in his head. He wanted a tool that would cut through the fog of politeness. He was 45, and he felt time compressing the space around his plans. He could live another 40 years in compromise. He could try to pull a new market out of these compromises. By lunchtime, they had assembled the box. A matte panel, a compact board, a camera, a light strip. The system would run on a local server, and a scale from green to red would appear on the screen. Priya ran a couple of test phrases. I'm not tired. I don't care at all. The strip would jump. See, she said. It's not a lie. It's social cosmetics. If you start painting every phrase like that red, the device will go in the trash. That's why we have yellow as a zone of doubt, Henry said. And explanations. Not you're lying, but there are discrepancies. I want the device to be a mirror, not an accuser. He stopped short. The word was too fancy for a technical note. He erased it from the document and wrote, Neutral Diagnostic Module. After lunch, he drove to Palo Alto to Phil's Coffee. Mark, an angel investor from their old crowd, was waiting there. Mark had the face of a man who had long ago realized that money loves silence and short letters. Just make it quick, Mark said as they shook hands. What are you building? A home lie detector, Henry began, but not like in the movies. It's more of a feedback tool. The device in the kitchen records signals in the voice and face, assesses probabilities, and gently reports discrepancies. The idea is simple. Family conflicts begin with misunderstandings. We remove this layer. You want to put a camera and microphones in the house and explain to people that it's for their own good. Mark lifted the lid of his glass. How many lawsuits are you willing to pay at the start? We work locally. Nothing goes to the cloud without consent. There will be a training mode. The device only responds to agreed topics, and we have a clear scenario. Don't rate children, don't rate guests, don't save without permission. Mark listened without interrupting. Why do people need this? He asked. Because everyone says everything is fine when it is not. Because family is a place where lying becomes a habit. A tool that helps them speak openly will give them a chance. You're married, Mark snapped. Do you really think a device will solve what talking and therapy usually solve? Devices change behavior. Step counters change behavior. Smart scales change behavior. It's the same thing. Mark nodded. Okay? From a business perspective, subscriptions, upsells, basic license one time, plus subscription to models, updates, safe backups, and possibly customization for couples, advice mode, directness mode. Do you understand that you will come to integrate with Alexa? Mark returned to the main point. Otherwise, you will lose convenience. Henry inhaled. Yes, I'm looking there, but carefully. Mark was silent. I'll give you a check for a prototype, he said finally. But I know how this ends. Your marketing phrase, revolution of honesty, will work against you. People agree with honesty as long as it's honesty from others. Be prepared for it to hurt you. It's just a technique, Henry said stubbornly. Technique rarely remains just technique, Mark replied. Good luck. In the evening, Henry stopped by the house for 10 minutes to drop off a box and his laptop, and then went to couples counseling. They had started going there a couple of months ago at Sarah's insistence. The therapist, Linda, a woman in her 50s with a direct manner of speaking, received them without smiling. What do you have this week? She asked. Sarah looked at him. He's coming home late again, she said. And he's always on the phone. I understand he has work. But we don't talk. We're all about tasks. Is this an accusation or a fact? Linda asked calmly. It's a fact, Sarah replied. Henry wanted to object, but remained silent. Henry? Linda turned her gaze to him. I'm working. I have a project, he said. I think it's important. What's more important, the project or your marriage? Linda asked. I don't see any competition in this, he replied. If the project takes off, it will be good for us too. Because of money? Linda clarified. Because the point is, he said after a pause, I don't want to wake up and know that I'm just passing the time. Sarah looked down. And I want us to at least have dinner together without his laptop. Linda nodded. A little practical task. 3 dinners this week without devices. Can you handle it? We can handle it, Sarah replied, if he agrees. Henry nodded. Agree. He didn't say that device-free dinners could be a testing ground for Frank. The thought flashed and disappeared. He knew how it would sound, but he could already see the device sitting in the kitchen, listening, blinking green, sometimes yellow. He could see people learning how to choose their words. He could see the press release and the testimonials from those who had benefited from it. He could see the sales chart, and it was moving up. After the session, they went to a small bistro on the corner. There was little space, and they talked quietly. Sarah asked, Did Mark invest? Yes, he said, for the prototype. How did he explain this to his wife? Sarah asked unexpectedly. Don't know. They ate pasta, talked about their niece going to college, their neighbors getting divorced, and their friend's dog getting surgery. No drama, just life. At one point, Sarah looked at him and said, I'm not against your idea. I'm just afraid that you'll put it between us, like another screen. It's not a screen, he replied. More of a conversation tool. It won't replace us. Sarah pushed her plate away. A conversation is when the person next to you wants to listen, not when a light bulb is blinking. He was silent again. The words stuck. Confidence was buzzing inside. The device doses directness correctly. It doesn't delve into the depths without a request. It gives a signal, and then people. On the way home, he mentally put together a plan for the week. Adjust the model for male voices, add adaptation for a specific home, make a consent mode. The device does not respond until both say the key phrase. He wrote down on his phone, make onboarding via QR code, add a local diary. And another line, research the skill for Alexa. That evening, when they went to bed, Sarah asked, Do you have a meeting tomorrow? In the morning. Then with Priya, at home in the evening. I promise. Fine. Henry lay in the dark, listening to the air conditioner hum softly, and thought about the word promise. It sounded like a check. It had to be covered. He knew that not everything was covered, and he knew that this was what he wanted to change. Not the people, the routine, the practice. The next morning, he got up early, took out the trash, made coffee, and opened the document again. At the top, under Revolution of Honesty, he added a section called Values. The device does not accuse, but informs. The user always controls the recording. No hidden modes. He stopped at the third point and looked at it for a while. Then he added another line, 4. Voice assistant only with explicit consent. And yet he understood, without an assistant, the product would remain a toy for enthusiasts. Integration promised convenience. Convenience always wins. At lunchtime, he called Mark. I decided to move towards integration after all, he said, only after the prototype. Carefully, through the beta group. You're still going to come, Mark replied. Okay, keep me posted. And Henry, talk to your wife. Not as a user, as a wife. I'll talk, he said. He hung up and wrote down the task. Tests, kitchen, living room, office, set of everyday phrases. He had seen these tests. First, the little things. Did you eat the pie? Do you like the movie? Then, the more difficult questions. He was counting on a gentle calibration of relations. He still believed that it would be safe. In the evening, he took the box out of the cabinet in the office and put it on the table in the kitchen. Sarah came in, saw the device, and stopped. Is this it? A prototype, he said. Just a box with a camera. And for what purpose? For an experiment. To understand if it works at all. On whom? On us. Only simple phrases. No personal things. With consent. If you don't like it, I'll remove it. Sarah moved closer, running her finger over the matte surface, like a new kitchen appliance. Is this like another member of the family? She asked, without a smile, but without irritation either. No, it's like a kitchen timer, only smarter. The kitchen timer doesn't ask why I'm late, and this won't happen if we don't want it. She sighed. I don't like it when the camera looks at me. I can cover the lens with a curtain, he suggested. That's in the plans. I'll think about it, she said, but promise me that nothing will be sent anywhere, and that I can turn it off with one word. I promise. She nodded. He felt relief momentarily obliterating the old weariness. He turned on the device, and a soft green line flashed on the panel for a moment. It was just a power indicator, but he wanted to think of it as the house responding. The chapter ended not with words, but with a to-do list on the refrigerator. Buy milk, make a dentist appointment, pay a parking ticket. Between these items, Henry wrote in marker, Frank, test 1, everyday phrases. He looked at that line and decided to start calmly, without provocation, without loud statements. He wanted to prove that the device could be useful without being destructive, that the revolution of honesty could begin with small things. He didn't yet know that small things were everything. On Sunday morning, Henry set the box on the edge of the kitchen island and wiped the panel with a napkin. An interface opened on his phone screen, 3 sliders, sensitivity, alert threshold, record. Below that, a large button, consent granted. He turned to Sarah. Let's set the rules, he said. Only mundane phrases. No questions about work, parents, past. The stop word is Arizona. If you say it, the device shuts down. Okay, Sarah nodded, and without a record. I'll set it to local without saving. See, he showed the screen, and the training mode. And one more thing. Alexa is silent, she added. I don't want our column to comment on anything. Of course, no integration. For now. Sarah poured herself a coffee and sat down opposite. Henry opened a test script. Simple questions about food, tastes, plans for the day. The strip on the panel was green. He pressed start. So, Henry said, did you finish last night's pie? I didn't mean to, replied Sarah. The stripe wavered and went yellow. The phone flashed, 32% discrepancy. It's not red, Henry said calmly. Just a little unsure. Maybe it's hard to remember. I ate a piece last night, Sarah admitted. A small one. I didn't want to hear, well, we agreed to eat normally. The stripe returned to green. Okay, so we'll add a note. Don't punish for little things, Henry said, making a note. Next, did you like the movie last night? I liked it, Sarah replied. Yellow went up. 57% discrepancy. Tell me honestly, he asked. I won't be offended. I was bored. It was a movie you loved. I wanted you to feel good. Accepted. Henry noted social politeness. Sarah took a sip of coffee. That's the problem with your machine. It picks up politeness and declares it suspect. Politeness is the lubricant of relationships. Without it, people get tired. I don't want to destroy it. I want it to not replace the conversation, he replied. If we both know we're being polite, that's one thing. If we pretend to be sincere and then irritation builds up, that's another. Sarah shrugged. Then teach the device to distinguish between care and deception. He nodded. The sensitivity slider went down a little. The first hour passed calmly. They tested the phrases, I don't need help with the dishes. I don't care where we go for dinner. I'm not tired. Yellow almost always popped up, sometimes green. There was no red. During lunch, Henry suggested testing it in the car. Let's put the box in the cup holder, he said. We'll just talk on the way to the store. Once, Sarah answered, and no other way. The Whole Foods parking lot was crowded. They sat in a car that smelled of air freshener and stale coffee. Henry had turned on his mobile workout mode. The microphones picked up his voice, the hum of the air conditioner. The bar was blinking. Let's talk about money, Henry began cautiously. How calm are you about the budget? Calm down, Sarah said. Yellow rose almost to red. 71% discrepancy. Okay, he nodded. What's troubling you? You spend more on hardware than you promised. And I'm worried about the mortgage. I'm an adult, but I'm afraid that I wouldn't be able to cover the payments on my own. This is not a complaint, it's a fact. Got it, he said. I'll restructure the budget. And I'll add a finance block to the device only on request and only with a list of topics. Sarah sighed. See, this is useful. We would have gotten to this point without your box. But with it, we got there faster. Just don't turn every conversation into a table. They made their way through the shelves in the store. Henry found himself wanting to ask about everything about her relationships with her coworkers, about her fatigue from her marriage, about her reading at night. He stopped himself. A deal was a deal. Shall we take this cheese? He asked at the display case. Go ahead, Sarah said. The green light was steady. It was a no-play answer. At home, they laid out the groceries and set up another set of tests on TV series. Sarah laughed for a long time when the stripe shot yellow on her. I love your favorite detective. I don't love it, she admitted. I tolerate it. I prefer documentaries. About people, not fiction. Then today is a documentary, Henry said, noting. Set recommendations for both. That evening, they washed the dishes together. Henry felt a mixture of relief and anxiety inside. It was as if he had picked up insignificant pebbles from the path, but there was still a boulder ahead. He pushed the thought away and returned to the screen. Let's try a little test on me, he suggested. Say something, and I'll answer, and we'll see. Sarah smiled with the corner of her lips. Did you take out the trash this morning because you wanted to, or because I told you to yesterday? Because I wanted to, he said out of habit. The stripe turned red. 89% discrepancy. Sarah looked at him. This is what I call honesty. Henry raised his hands. I brought it out because you asked me to yesterday, and because I'm ashamed that I forget. The stripe returned to green. Thank you, Sarah said softly. They took a break. Sarah went into the bedroom to lie down for half an hour with an audiobook. Henry stayed in the kitchen and recorded his observations. He was glad that the device wasn't falling into chaos. The signals were predictable. He liked that every now and then it flashed green, a sign that they still had easy zones. He switched the device to self-calibration mode and spoke several phrases into it. I love my job. I'm not afraid of failing. I don't compare myself to my friends. At not afraid of failing, the stripe turned yellow. He was not surprised. Mark was right. Technology rarely remains just technology. It gets into personal things. He added a note. Create a personal account. A person sees his own profile without other people's access. After dinner, they walked out into the park. A cool breeze blew in from the bay, runners skirted them, dogs tugged on their leashes. Sarah walked silently, then spoke. It's not that you made the device that scares me. It's that you trust it more than your feelings. Be careful. I don't trust the device, I trust the reaction, he said. I'm not a judge. It's a flashlight. It shows where to stop and ask, did you really mean this? And if a person doesn't want to discuss it, she asked. Then he says, Arizona, and we fall silent. She chuckled. It's good that it's Arizona. I love Sedona. We haven't gone anywhere for a long time, he said. Because you build your own world, she replied. This is not a reproach. This is also a fact. On the way back, Sarah said, let's spend a week with your thing. Every day an hour. Then we'll decide whether to live with it or turn it off. Shake on it, he replied. The next day, Henry sent Priya a report. She returned a list of comments. Too sensitive to I'm tired and I don't care, she said in a video call. These are typical American 40-plus phrases for women. They often don't mean lies. They're a defense against unnecessary discussion. How do I take this into account? He asked. Enter a dictionary of contexts. If a couple has an agreement, I say this when I want silence, then the device won't get involved. Let people mark such phrases in the app. I'll do it, Henry said and sketched out an interface, a checkbox for does a comment require. During the day, he and Priya met in a small laboratory at the university. They checked the microphones, the pads, and the camera. Priya turned on the ventilation noise, imitating the clanging of plates, coughing, and laughter. The system held up. On a narrow strip, yellow appeared for everything is fine, red rarely. Your device is like a training machine, Priya said. People learn to notice how they speak. That's valuable. But be prepared for rejection. No one likes having their habits highlighted. I know, he replied. But if at least some of the couples learn to speak a little more accurately, that will be a win. He came home early that evening. He bought some rosemary bread and lentil soup at the corner. Sarah was surprised to see the bag. No delivery today, she asked. Yes, and without a laptop on the table, he said. That's already a plus, she said and smiled. They had dinner and turned the device back on. Henry suggested a game format, cards with everyday themes, home, health, friends, ex. The cards were his improvisation based on the therapist's advice, but now in digital form. We take house, he said. The question is, are you comfortable living in this area? It's comfortable, Sarah replied. But I dream of an apartment closer to the ocean. That's not a complaint. That's a dream. The green light was on. 92% match. Next, health, he continued. Are you taking care of yourself as much as you want? No, Sarah said without pause. I skip workouts. I promise myself to go to bed earlier, but I scroll through my phone again, and I haven't checked out in 2 years. The green has become more even. I can help, Henry said, without a device. Just ask once a week. Ask, she agreed. They reached the Friends card. There, the strip lit up for the first time in soft red on Sereno's. I'm not annoyed by Monica. Sarah sighed. It's annoying. She compares salaries all the time. I feel judged by someone else's scale. We could meet with her less often, he suggested, and not explain. Thank you, Sarah said. As the night wore on, the racket grew louder. The device picked up a couple of false alarms from the kettle and the fridge. Henry wrote down, filtering household noise. All in all, it looked like a working week for the product. Before going to bed, Sarah stopped at the door to the office. I'll tell you the main thing, she said. I'm not against honesty. I'm against you using it as a weapon. If I say, I'm tired and don't want to talk, don't take out the box. Give me the night. I'll remember, he replied, and I'll add a clause in the app that says fatigue don't analyze. She nodded. And one more thing. We're having dinner with my sister on Thursday. Don't turn on the machine in front of her. No experiments. I promise. She went into the bedroom. Henry sat down at the table and opened his laptop. The Alexa Skill Developer Forum flickered on the tab. He glanced at the box in the kitchen and closed the tab. Too early. In the morning, he woke up before the alarm, made coffee, and checked the logs. The statistics showed soft peaks for "I'm not tired" and "I don't care." He applied new thresholds, added a social politeness dictionary, and turned on the 24-hour stop word pause mode. Sarah stepped out and adjusted the strap of her bag. "No tests tonight," she said. "We need to talk about insurance. This is real life, not your app." "I agree," he said. She was already reaching for the door, then took a step back. "And yet, I ate the last piece of pie this morning. If it matters to you, buy another one." She smiled, "And mark it green." "I'll note," he said, and felt that this time, without the device, everything was clear. The day passed in small details. He met with a lawyer about the user agreement, wrote Linda a letter asking about the wording for couples, and got a list of new datasets from Priya. In the evening, he and Sarah actually talked about insurance without Frank. It was calm. No bars, no percentages. He noted to himself, turning off is no worse than turning on. Before going to bed, he looked at the box again. It was just a device on the kitchen counter, like a toaster, but it was already changing their routine. He thought it was working. He didn't know that the most important test ahead would not be about pie or TV shows. On Monday morning, Henry opened his laptop earlier than usual. There was an email from Mark in his inbox. "You said convenience. Put it out there by voice. People don't want to look at stripes, they want to be told out loud." Below that was a short note. "And don't forget the disclaimer. A voice that accuses is a bad idea." Henry opened the Alexa skills documentation. He quickly skimmed through the sections on the activation phrase, permissions handling, and certification requirements. He liked the section on whisper mode. He didn't like the lines about privacy. He closed the tab and reopened it. The decision had been made anyway. He sketched out a plan, a skill that didn't record anything in the cloud and only received a short command from the home box. The local server generated the text comment without any personal data. Alexa played it out loud only after the stop word agreed, and if both had given permission in the app. He called it commentator mode. Before lunch, he set up a prototype. A dashboard appeared on the screen. Alexa, off, whisper, on by default. Speak only the final wording, no percentages. Instead of 57% discrepancy, he wrote a simple phrase, "There is a discrepancy, need to clarify." In the co-working space, Priya looked at his screen and immediately grimaced. "You're bringing the voice into the house," she said. "It will be a provocation." "It will be convenient," Henry replied. "People won't be looking at their phones while they're talking. The voice will just make a quick comment, and that's it." "When will he intervene?" Priya asked. "Who decides when to speak?" "Only after the key phrase, and only if both agree. I added double protection." "You realize that even a gentle remark can sound like a death sentence," Priya said. "It's worth clarifying is not bad, but it will still put people on the defensive. So whisper, and keep it short," Henry said. "I want it to be like an attention switch, not a trial." Priya shook her head, but didn't argue. At lunch, Henry jumped into a quick call with Jamie, a dev evangelist on the Alexa team. They met at a hackathon about 5 years ago. "Give me the most dangerous place," Jamie said immediately. "I don't mean bugs. I mean what will cause user complaints and certification failure." "The skill voices, honesty comments," Henry answered. "Only locally, without sending audio to the cloud, without recording. Both parties must say agreed. There is a stop word. The skill is silent if the door is open or if there are guests in the house. I added this through sensors." "That's clever," she admitted, "but you're still playing on the edge. Remember, you can't sound like the device is stating a fact. Keep your wording soft. And don't get into topics like health, sex life, money, unless explicitly requested." "I have a default blacklist of topics," Henry said. "They can only be disabled manually with confirmation." "Good. And one more thing. The skill shouldn't be launched by accident. Choose a long activation phrase. I set it to Alexa, open Frank, and turn on commentary. No short triggers. With this, you have a chance of passing. But I won't promise, Jamie said. And read the disclaimer section. After the call, Henry added a voice phrase to the first activation. Frank is not a crime detector. It is a conversational aid. Mark would have grinned, but it was necessary. He saved the build and sent it for internal testing. At home, he placed the box neatly under the TV, where Alexa was. In the kitchen, he deliberately did not turn on the integration. That's where they had therapeutic dinners. In the living room, a different field. Sarah went down the stairs and stopped. You connected it after all, she said, looking at the glowing dot on the speaker. Only on my account for now, Henry replied. No automatic activations. I'd like to ask you for a 15-minute test. Once, in a whisper, and only on simple phrases. Why whisper? Sarah asked. So that it doesn't sound like an order, he said, and so that it doesn't scare you. Sarah came closer. The rules are the same as before. The stop word is Arizona. We don't touch topics from the blacklist. We don't touch guests. Nothing is recorded. Yes, he said. And one more thing. If you don't like it, we'll turn the skill off forever. I'll keep the old screen mode, that's all. She nodded. 15 minutes. Just not tonight. Dinner with my sister tonight, you promised. Not today, he confirmed. Tomorrow after work. The next day, they met in the living room after dinner. The lights were soft, the TV off. Henry pressed Start Session on the app, and a thin line lit up on the speaker. He said, Alexa, open Frank and turn on commentary. Frank is on, came the whisper. Session approved. Reminder, you can say Arizona to stop. Henry nodded to Sarah. Let's start with something simple. Sarah, did you like the new restaurant near the station? I liked it, Sarah said. After a short pause, Alexa whispered. Comment. There may be some doubts about the service. It is worth clarifying. Sarah smiled. It was delicious, but the waiter was always in a hurry. I felt like a spare part. Not critical. Got it, Henry said. He looked at his phone. A short line service appeared in the log. No percentages, no charts. Just the keyword and the time. Next, he said. Are you comfortable with me working in the evenings? Not really, Sarah answered without pause. Alexa remained silent. This was correct. If the phrase sounds direct, there is nothing to comment on. Okay, Henry said. I'll limit the evening sessions to 9. Sarah nodded. He decided to check out a difficult area, but still within the framework of everyday. Do you really want to go to your mother's for Christmas? He asked. I want to, Sarah said. A short pause, then a whisper. Comment. There may be some doubt about the duration of the trip. It is worth clarifying. Sarah sighed. I want to go because I haven't seen her for a long time, but a week is too much. 3 days would be better. Agreed, Henry said. The session was going smoothly. The device didn't sound like an accusation. It was more of a short nudge to clarify. Henry felt it was working, and yet there was tension inside. Any phrase could go beyond the boundaries. 5 minutes left, he said. Let's ask one more question from me, Sarah suggested. Did you buy a new laptop last week? No, he answered. The whisper came almost immediately. Comment. Discrepancy detected. Subject. Equipment. Needs clarification. Henry pursed his lips. I bought a board and a case. It's not a laptop, but it was more expensive than we planned. Sarah nodded. Thank you for clarifying. Arizona, she said after a moment. Let's stop for today. The session has been stopped, Alexa whispered. They turned off the skill. The room went silent. Sarah said, It's a little better than I expected, but I don't want it to become the background of our lives. Let's agree, only upon request, and no more than twice a week. I agree, Henry said. The next day, they had dinner with Sarah's sister, Liz. Liz showed up with her husband, Tom, and 2 loud bags from Trader Joe's. Henry put the box under the TV in the closet and turned off the skill in the app. The evening passed without technology. They talked about their nephew's school, about housing prices, about Liz's new project. Sarah made eye contact with Henry a couple of times. He realized she was counting his promise fulfillment. This was important. On Wednesday afternoon, Henry went back to the code. He added a consent button to the mobile app. Both must press it within a minute or the skill won't activate. He also added a second form of output. Instead of a vague, "I have doubts," he added a short, positive statement when the obvious truth is discovered. Fact confirmed, you prefer documentaries. He thought long and hard about whether that was too intrusive, but he decided to keep it. Sometimes people benefit from simple confirmation. At lunchtime, he drove out to Sunnyvale for a quick meeting with Jamie at a cafe near campus. She tried the demo on his phone and listened to the whispers. "It seems discreet," she said. "Leave whisper as the only mode for home. And check the behavior if someone says, 'Alexa,' in the middle of a sentence. There is an acoustic trap." "I'll check," Henry said. "Also, don't name people in the comments," Jamie added. "Sarah said is bad. Partner said is neutral." "Got it," he said. "I'll replace it." In the evening, he offered Sarah a second short session. She agreed on the condition that it would be a plus mode, where the voice confirms clear things rather than catching doubts. They chose the friends and home cards. "I really like our new sofa," Henry said. "The fact is confirmed," Alexa whispered. Sarah laughed. "I really don't like that you leave mugs on the computer," she said. "The fact is confirmed," the whisper repeated. "It's weird," Sarah said, "but it's useful. We say what we politely avoid, and we get a short response, not a sentence." "That's the idea," Henry said. They turned off the skill after 10 minutes. Both seemed calm. Henry noted, plus mode was a relief. He was almost tempted to leave it at that and not go any further. But the next thought was already running through his head. People aren't going to open the app and click consent every time. They need a hands-free scenario. He added to the backlog, "Optional. Alexa, let's be honest for 5 minutes." On Thursday, he met with a lawyer. He immediately said, "The phrases 'fact confirmed' and 'discrepancy detected' are safer than 'true-false.' Stick to them, and be sure to record explicit consent to voice. Store logs locally and encrypt them." "That's what I did," Henry replied. "And turn off the voiceover if the device hears another voice in the room," the lawyer added. "Guests, children, neighbors on Zoom. People don't forgive unexpected comments." On Friday afternoon, Sarah texted him, "My sister is inviting us over for a BBQ on Saturday, without your box. Is that okay?" He replied, "Yes," and added guest mode to his settings for the weekend. In the evening, they had dinner at home. It was quiet at the table. In the middle of the conversation, Sarah said, "I think we can handle this tool if it remains a tool. I like that it weans us from 'everything is fine' when it is not fine. But I am afraid that one day it will say something that should not be heard out loud." "We control when he speaks," Henry replied, "and what he says. This is our home." Sarah looked at him. "Home is also when we don't speak in someone else's voice," she said. "Just remember that." He nodded. On Saturday, Liz had a corn and chicken roast in the yard. The kids were running around with a ball. Henry caught himself a couple of times in his professional habit of analyzing the voices of the people around him. He pushed it away. The equipment was left at home. Sarah was talking to Liz, laughing. He realized how important this was to her in ordinary day, without tests. On Sunday morning, Henry went back to the code. He added a 5-minute timer and a whisper confirmation. Alexa would whisper, "Your session will end in 1 minute." He also added an option to "don't speak when the window is open" because of the echo and so that the neighbors wouldn't hear. As a final step, he added another option: speak not only the doubt, but also the hypothesis. For example, if a person said, "I don't care where I go," the device could whisper, "comment. A short drive might be preferable." It was risky, but he wanted to try. In the evening, he showed Sarah, "I want to test one scenario. 5 minutes. If anything happens, stop." Sarah settled into the chair and hid her legs under the blanket. Go ahead, just without the topics we discussed. Alexa, open Frank and turn on commentary for 5 minutes, Henry said. Frank is on. Session approved. Reminder, safe word, Arizona. Henry looked at Sarah. Do you want to fly to my sister's for Thanksgiving? I don't know yet, she answered. Comment, perhaps you would be more comfortable with a short car ride, Alexa whispered. Sarah nodded. It's true. I'm tired of flying. Henry asked, are we going to continue having device-free dinners? Yes, said Sarah. The fact is confirmed, the column whispered. The session ended without a hitch. Henry exhaled. He recorded, integration is viable. He didn't know yet that the next week would change everything. New settings would make the device convenient. With convenience would come risk, and a short, whispered phrase would one day sound at an inopportune moment. Tuesday started off quietly. Henry woke up early, made coffee, and checked the night logs. Yesterday, he had merged the hands-free branch and the new context extraction model Priya had sent. The description was, better associates phrases with references to objects and names spoken in recent conversations. The default settings were, don't say names out loud. He left the checkbox checked. He added another one, a 5-minute session on the phrase, let's be honest. Next to it was a note, home-only option, whisper enabled. He wrote in the backlog, run edge case, random launch on similar phrases. Sarah came down in her robe and made some oatmeal. They exchanged quick updates. She had a benefits meeting, he had a call with a lawyer. Nothing tense. At the end of breakfast, Sarah said, I'll be late this evening. Liz has a problem with her bookkeeping, so she asked me to help her. I'll stop by after work. Okay, Henry nodded. I'll take care of dinner. I'll buy salad and soup. Thank you. He watched her tie her belt. He liked the fact that this week the conversations had become more direct, and they had also consciously gone without the device a few times. He decided there was a balance. During the day, he went to the lawyer's office and discussed the wording for the user agreement. The lawyer repeated the idea. No personal names and voice acting. Even if the local model can handle them, it's explosive. I've already turned it off, Henry replied. Neutral messages by default. He returned to the co-working space, went into the repository, and saw the check mark next to Don't Say Names Again. He made sure it was true. He ran a short test with artificial phrases. The whisper said evenly, comment, possibly doubtful. No names. He slammed the laptop shut. In the evening, he stopped by the store, bought ready-made soup, salad, and bread. It was quiet at home. Sarah texted at 7, we're staying late at Liz's. At 9, I'll be there soon. At 10, silence. Henry was distracted by some editing, then sat down on the couch and turned on the match without sound. Around 11, a message arrived. I went home, tired. She entered the house at almost midnight. She tiredly took off her shoes, went into the kitchen, drank some water, without looking at Henry. Is everything okay? He asked. Yes, Sarah said. We've covered her questions. I'm exhausted. Got it. Lie down. They lay down in the bedroom in silence. Henry noticed that she smelled different, not their powder, but something sweet, someone else's conditioner. He pushed the thought away. At 45, people change products, buy new perfumes. He didn't ask. In the morning, Sarah seemed calm. They quickly got ready and agreed on who would pick up the shoes from the repair shop. Then it was a normal day. A short text message at lunch, a couple of jokes about colleagues. At 5, she wrote, I'm going straight home. Let's skip the tests today. He replied, okay. By 8, they were sitting at the kitchen island. Henry was slicing bread. Sarah was sorting through emails on her phone. The TV in the living room was off. Alexa was standing underneath it, its indicator light glowing softly. The Frank box was in the cabinet, without power. Are you going to the office or from home tomorrow? Sarah asked. From home. I have 2 assemblies and a call with Jamie. Fine. Sarah picked up her phone, wrote a short message to someone, and turned the screen down. Henry poured soup into bowls. "How long did you stay at Liz's yesterday?" he asked. "Until 10 o'clock," she answered. "Then I went home." "Did you meet someone on the way?" "No." And then a whisper came to life in the living room as if someone had leaned over their table. Only it wasn't a whisper. The voice was normal, confident, without lowering the volume. "You're a liar, Sarah. You slept with Trevor last night." They turned their heads at the same time. The blue circle on the speaker flickered and went silent. There was a moment of silence in which the soup could be heard bubbling quietly in the bowl. Sarah slowly put down her spoon. "What was that?" she asked without looking up. Henry's breath caught for a second. The voice used the word liar and said a name. He hadn't written a template like that, and the whisper was off. He jumped up, walked over to the speaker, and opened the app. The log contained a short line, "Hands-free session started." Below that was the phrase, "You're a liar, Sarah. You slept with Trevor last night." The wording source field read, "Debug template RU." He froze. He'd never left a Russian test string in a public building. It could have come from the set where he and Priya tested the multilingualism of their models. And judging by the field, the skill had somehow been allowed to use debug template. He felt his body heat up. "That's a mistake," he said, too quickly. "That shouldn't have happened. That's from the debug. There were examples there, and—" "Wait," Sarah said calmly. "Are you saying the column makes random accusations from the example?" "These are not accusations. These are templates for developers. They should not go into production." Sarah looked up. "The name Trevor is also from the template." Henry looked at the screen. The context line flashed, "Related entities, Trevor from recent conversations." He remembered, on Sunday, Liz had been in their yard talking about Trevor's coach from the nearby gym. The name had been mentioned in passing. The model remembered, but that only explained the name, not the entire phrase. "The name came up in conversations," he said quietly. "The phrase is a bug. I turned off the display of names. It shouldn't have happened." Sarah stood up and pushed her chair back. "That's not an answer. A device in my house said out loud that I slept with a man named Trevor. Do you understand the scope?" Henry raised his hands. "I'll turn it all off, right now, and I'll figure it out. I swear I didn't plan." "Henry," she interrupted, "answer one question. Have you been following me?" "No," he said sharply. "I'm not monitoring. The device only listens when activated. I set up stop words, filters, everything you asked for." "But it spoke on its own," Sarah said, "without our activation." He looked at the log. Key phrase, "let's be honest." He remembered that a minute earlier he had said, "Let's not test today." And he realized the model could have picked up "let's" and a similar sounding word from the TV in the next room, which he turned on during the day. A stupid coincidence. Enough to activate. "It was activated by a phrase," he said. "It's my fault. I didn't check." Sarah looked at him. "Okay, now the second question. Do you really think this is just a bug, or do you mean to say that the device guessed right?" "I don't know," he said. "I don't want to know that way." "But you already know," Sarah said. "You heard the name, and now you won't stop." Henry felt a dull anger and fear growing inside him. "Who is Trevor?" he asked. "A colleague," Sarah answered. "Were you at Liz's yesterday?" He kept his voice even. "I was at Liz's," she said. "And also, I stopped by Trevor's for 20 minutes. He lives nearby." Henry remained silent. "We had some tea," she added. "That's it?" he asked. Sarah paused. He saw her collect her words. "No," she said, "not everything." He leaned his elbows on the table. The soup was getting cold. He felt the tension in his shoulders. "How long has this been going on?" "It's not ongoing," she said. "It happened twice. It's wrong. I know. And I didn't mean to," she paused. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I thought I could figure it out and stop it. And yes, I know how that sounds." Why? He asked. Why exactly like this? Why not talk to me? I tried, Sarah said. I talked in therapy, at home, in cafes. You listened and immediately turned the conversation into a project, a task, an improvement plan. And I wanted to be heard as more than a task. I wanted to feel like I was more than a tick on a tracker. And Trevor makes you not a point? His voice broke. He was just there and looking at me like I existed, she said quietly. That's not an excuse. That's a fact. I'm not making excuses. Henry ran his hand over his face. Were you going to tell me? I didn't know how, she said. I hoped it would end on its own, that it was a mistake, that I would close the door. And yes, I was a coward. I didn't want to ruin what we still had. They stood in the kitchen like two people who suddenly found themselves in an unfamiliar room. A speaker by the wall flickered a skill update. Henry abruptly pulled the cord out of the socket. The blue circle went out. We don't talk about this thing anymore, he said. Ever. I'll disable the integration. I'll delete the skill. You're not going to fix what's already happened, Sarah interrupted. I know, he said, but I won't let the machine speak for us. They went into the living room. Henry sat on the edge of the sofa, Sarah in the chair by the window. He could hear the refrigerator humming in the next room. He found himself wanting to latch on to details. Twice, 20 minutes, tea. He realized that this was the path to interrogation, not conversation. He clenched his fingers. Do you want to leave? He asked bluntly. Sarah shook her head. No, I want to understand what we have left. Without columns, without percentages and comments. Then we'll start with the rules, he said. Not for the device, for us. Number 1, you stop communicating with it. Number 2, we go to Linda and tell the truth. Number 3, no secrets in the phones. I'm not asking to see everything. I'm asking to remove the passcodes between us. First, yes, Sarah said. Second, yes. Third, I'll think about it. I don't want to live in testing mode. It's humiliating. And isn't it humiliating for me to hear from the column that you slept with someone? He said sharply and immediately paused. Okay? I don't want to turn this into a trial. I don't know what the right way is. Let's at least agree on a week no contact with him. Then we'll decide. Agreed, Sarah said. He nodded. It was empty and heavy inside. He went into the kitchen, poured the soup into the sink, and put the plates in the dishwasher. He returned to the living room. I'm going away for an hour, he said, to get some fresh air. I'll be back. Okay, Sarah replied. He got out, got into his car, and drove down an empty street. A 24-hour Mel's opened on the corner. He grabbed a coffee and sat at the counter. The same scene repeated in his head, the speaker pronouncing a phrase. He opened his laptop, connected to the co-working VPN, and went to the repository. He found a commit with debug template ru. The author was himself, 3 weeks ago. Comment, multi-language check, not for release. The changelog says merge with the entity names branch. The config says allow underscore names, false. But there's another flag nearby, dev underscore override, true. He knew what it was. It was so that the home build could test all scenarios, even if they were disabled in production. He forgot to remove it. He felt cold. He wrote down, urgent, remove override, check activators, remove hands-free until full test. And he still understood that this was a technical layer, and for him it was a family one. He returned home after midnight. Sarah was sitting on the couch, hugging her knees. Her phone was lying on the coffee table. I wrote to Trevor that I wouldn't see him again, she said. If you want, read it. I believe you, he said. Not because the device says so, because I want to believe. Sarah nodded. They sat in silence. Then he said, therapy is tomorrow. Let's ask Linda for an unscheduled meeting. They spent the night in separate rooms. The first thing Henry did in the morning was take the box out of the closet, unplug it, and put it on the top shelf in the garage. He reset the Alexa speaker to factory settings. He deleted the skill on his phone and sent Jamie an email. Critical incident. Need certification consultation and rollback. 10 minutes later, he received a response. Call. Urgent. In the kitchen, Sarah made coffee. He poured himself some, wanted to say something, but couldn't find the words. Sarah spoke first. I don't know if we can get through this, but I'm willing to work, and I understand that your thing isn't to blame for me. But it put us on display in our home. That won't happen again. It won't, he said. The phone blinked. A message from an unfamiliar address. Henry, your project has caught the attention of our agency. We would like to discuss potential testing for national security purposes. Is it convenient to call? The message was short, without logos. He glanced at the screen and immediately turned it face down. Something important? Sarah asked. Nothing that can't wait, he said. Us first. Henry looked at the window. The light was normal. The house was the same. But there was a new set of facts between them that he couldn't escape. He sighed and took Linda's business card out of his pocket. He dialed the number. Linda, it's Henry. We need to meet today if there's a window. Come at 4, she answered without further questions. He hung up. Sarah nodded. They sat in silence. The house was quiet, as it always was in the morning. Only now they heard each pause differently. By 4 o'clock, they were sitting in Linda's office. The windows were covered with blinds. There was water and napkins on the table. Linda listened to them in turn, without interrupting. Sarah said it straight out. There was a connection with Trevor. She had stopped it and was ready to work. Henry said that he had turned off the device and deleted the skill, but the feeling of intrusion remained in both of them. First, Linda said, 30 days without contact with third parties. Second, twice-a-week sessions with me. Third, 1 honest hour a day, but without gadgets. You sit down and talk. If you get tired, say stop and postpone. And control, Henry asked. We'll set up shared passwords, locations. You are adults, Linda replied. If you want, install it. But remember, monitoring does not cure mistrust, it only records it. Your task is to restore the minimum on which you can live and work. I agree with the locations, Sarah said, but without reading the messages, and without the voice-over system at home. I can't stand it. Okay, Henry nodded, and no checks that look like traps. Traps will ruin everything, Linda confirmed. And one last thing, don't use children, friends, and relatives as arbiters. This is your story. They sat in the car in Linda's parking lot for another 10 minutes. Let's turn on location sharing and find my, Henry said. And arrivity part alerts for home and work only. No street-by-street tracking. I agree, said Sarah, and we'll set a quiet hour at 9 o'clock. No checking at that time. I want to sleep. At home, they laid out a sheet of paper with the rules on the table and both signed them. The list read like a household contract. Locations yes, messaging no, Alexa off, Frank in the garage, honest hour 8 p.m. Henry hung the sheet on the refrigerator next to a reminder about the dentist. In the evening, the first honest hour began. Without a phone, without a laptop, they sat down at the table and took turns answering questions from the booklet Linda gave them. What irritates you about me in everyday life? What do you like about me and you don't talk about it? In the middle of the conversation, the doorbell rang. Monica, their neighbor, was standing on the threshold. Guys, I'm sorry, she said. Your speaker was very loud last night. Our kids heard the name of someone named Trevor. It was awkward. Please check your settings. Sarah thanked him and promised that it wouldn't happen again. The door closed. Henry stood with the form in his hands and felt anger rising at himself and the piece of iron. Sarah saw this and said, Make her keep quiet forever. I don't want to explain myself to the neighbors. I've already dropped it, he replied. I'll pick up the speaker in a box today. After dinner, the little safety gestures began. Sarah put a clear keys and wallets container in the kitchen so there would be no questions about who went where. Henry turned on large transaction alerts at the bank so there would be no surprises. Both pretended it was just a convenience, but the convenience quickly turned into a test. The next day, Henry stopped at a hardware store and bought a metal box with a combination lock. At home, he put the speaker and the Frank box in it, closed it, and put it on the top shelf of the garage. "It looks like a safe for alcohol," Sarah noted. "It's safe for equipment," he replied. "We both know the code. If someone wants to open it, we open it together." Sarah nodded, but that evening she installed a small intercom camera in the hallway, which had previously been planned for parcels, and turned on the door open notification. Henry saw the push on his phone and realized that their agreement was beginning to fall apart. "It's temporary," Sarah said, "so you don't have to think." "I understand," he replied. "I spent part of the day wondering where you were too." "And what did you come up with?" "Nothing," he said, and lied. He had already set his phone to reminder, ask about the plan for the day at 6:30 p.m. By evening, they were both tired, but they still spent the honest hour, and it got worse. Sarah asked, "You received a letter today that made you look away. What was it about?" "Recruiting," he said. "No big deal." Somewhere deep down, an old reflex kicked in with sarcasm. He saw it on Sarah's face. She raised a finger. "Stop. This is what breaks us. If you don't want to talk, say it. No need for trifles. Okay? A letter from people from a government agency. They want to test the technology. I'm going to refuse. Refuse and write it in a letter in my presence." He opened his laptop and wrote a polite refusal. Sarah sat next to him and watched him type. It was unpleasant, but honest. On the second day of the house war, they cleaned the house and conducted inspections at the same time. Sarah put a strip of flour on the garage floor to show if anyone had taken out a box during the night. Henry rolled up his sleeves and said, "We've gone too far." "Yes," she agreed and did not put away the flour. Sarah also began to do petty checks at the office. She put her phone face up but turned on Do Not Disturb, so she wouldn't get notifications when she was in a meeting. Emily's colleague asked at lunch, "Are you okay?" "We're trying to live by the rules," Sarah said. "It's like a diet. It's hard, but otherwise we'll fall apart." "A diet doesn't last long if it's too strict," Emily replied. "Give yourself some air, and don't play cop." Sarah returned to the table and saw a notification. Henry left home. 5 minutes later, Henry arrived at the El Camino coffee shop. She closed the screen. It seemed unnecessary, but she didn't turn it off. In the co-working space, Henry tried to work, but he checked his phone every 10 minutes. He caught himself looking for an excuse to text Sarah, "Where are you?" Instead, he opened the repo and deleted the branches with hands-free. Then he texted Priya, "Incident. Rolled back. Need audit of activators." Priya replied, "Come over tonight, we'll run tests." And Henry, "Don't let your home become a lab." The house became crowded. Every gesture from the other side was taken as a hint. Henry counted the mugs on the table. Sarah looked at the car's odometer. On the third day, they broke down because of something stupid. Sarah said, "I didn't write to Trevor." "I believe," he replied. And at that very moment, he said, "Will you show me the chat?" "No," she replied. "We didn't agree on reading." The pause stretched. Both realized that they had returned to what they had left. "Let's do it this way," Henry suggested. "One short session. No names, no judgment. Let the voice tell us if there's a mismatch. 5 minutes. If it's unpleasant, we stop. That's it." Then silence again. Sarah was silent for a long time. 5 minutes. In a whisper. And in the living room, and you activate it yourself and turn it off yourself. They took the box out of the safe, set up the speaker, and turned on local mode only. Henry double-checked the settings, turned on the blacklist for names, finances, health, and intimacy. Pressed start. "I didn't write to Trevor," Sarah repeated. Whisper said, "Comment, insufficient data. It is recommended to clarify later. Sarah chuckled. See, even the car doesn't want to get in. Okay, he nodded. Then I will. I'm not going to answer the agency's letter without you. The fact is confirmed, the column whispered. They switched it off. 5 minutes didn't turn into an hour. It was a rare lucky break. But the next day, it all went wrong again. On Saturday, they went to see friends, Paul and Addison. Henry had left the speaker in the safe at home beforehand. The evening was lively, with wine and talk of renovation. At one point, Paul said, laughing, "Let's be honest, how many of you actually watch Real Housewives?" Sarah winced at the words, "let's be honest." Henry's reflex kicked in too. They looked at each other. Addison noticed. "Hey, are you okay?" "Yes," Henry said too quickly. If their speaker had been in the room, she would have whispered, "inconsistency." Addison changed the subject, but the evening had already passed. On the way home, Sarah said, "We are infected with these words. We must completely remove any activation from life, even phrases." "I agree," he replied, "and let's separate into separate rooms for a week, so as not to raise our voices in the kitchen. Let's." On Sunday morning, Henry noticed that the flour on the garage floor was crumpled. He realized that he had gone down to get the box himself during the night, checked the locks, and returned it. He didn't even remember how. He swept up the traces and said to Sarah, "It's my fault. I checked. At night. This is idiotic. I won't do it again." "I also put a camera in the hallway," she admitted. "I deleted it. We need a break." They agreed. A week, no columns, no checks, only geolocation and honest hour. But in the evening, everything was covered again. A new letter arrived with a state domain, this time official. Henry said, "Spam." Sarah looked at him for a long time. "This is not spam. You are nervous. Tell me honestly, do you want to do this?" "I don't want to lose the product," he said, "but I don't want to lose you." "Then make a choice. You answer them, no, right now, or you tell me, yes, I want to go there, without later." He opened the laptop. His fingers froze. He honestly didn't know. There were 2 lines running through it: build a career in technology and save the house. He closed the screen. "I'll say no. Today. But I need to figure out if I'm killing everything I've worked for." Sarah nodded. "Then you tell Linda tomorrow, and together we decide what to do with the product." He sat down on a chair. The house was quiet. He suddenly heard a cheap Chinese water leak detector blinking in the closet, the one that had once been synced with Alexa. He took out the battery. One thought was in his head. They lived in a system where any sound was perceived as a signal for verification. On Monday morning, they both ate breakfast in silence. Sarah said, "Today, no honest hour. I can't handle it. Let's just be close and make dinner. No talk of control." "Okay," he replied. On the shelf in the hallway, the phone screen blinked. A new notification. Unread email. Agency invites you to a meeting. Henry turned the phone face down. At that moment, he heard someone else's whisper in his head, "It's worth checking." He took a piece of paper from the refrigerator and wrote with a pen, "New rule. Do not say any triggers out loud, and do not launch gadgets, even as a joke." He realized that the house had become a testing ground. They both created it, and it was up to them to stop it. Not with technology, with decisions. At 10 o'clock on Tuesday morning, Henry's phone rang. It was a 202 number. He turned it off and stared at the screen. A minute later, an email arrived at his work inbox. "Henry, we represent the New Technology Assessment Group. We would like to discuss your project. It is in the interest of national security. Please call back." The signature was dry, the domain was gov, and a short, one-page NDA was attached. He sat in a co-working space, keyboards clicking around him, laptops reflected in the glass. He looked at the safe icon in the upper right-hand corner of the email and remembered Linda. "Don't make decisions when you're anxious." He wrote to Priya, "Can you do this for 10 minutes? This is a serious matter." Priya arrived with a cup of tea. They found you, she said when she read the letter. Of course they did. Anything that can pull out the inconsistency is of interest to them. I'll send a polite refusal, Henry said. Sarah's already at her limit. Priya nodded, but she didn't look calm. Take a break and make a list of conditions. Even if you refuse, the list will show what worries you. And discuss it with a lawyer right away. And tell Sarah first of all, and Henry, don't go to the phone call alone. He called a lawyer and made an appointment for the evening. Then he opened the draft of the waiver. The words wouldn't come together. A message from Mark popped up next to it. Heard the feds are looking for you. Congratulations. That's a sign you've done something important. Let's meet for coffee. Henry closed the chat and added to the draft. The project is not intended for use outside of a domestic context. Thank you for your interest, but we're not ready. He didn't send it. He sat down and stared at the table. Sarah's day began with a privacy training session. There was a slide in the HR conference room, gadgets in employees' homes, limits and risks. The manager said that companies respect privacy, but ask employees to understand where sound and video go. After the training, Sarah went into the tiny office kitchen and poured coffee. Emily asked, "How are you?" "I'm holding on," Sarah said. "We agreed on an honest hour. No technology. Sometimes it works. Sometimes we both fall off." "Do you trust him?" Emily asked quietly. "I want to learn again," Sarah said. The phone beeped. A message from Henry. "Need to talk tonight. Important." She replied, "I can at 8. That afternoon, a neighborhood chat group on Nextdoor popped up on Sarah's screen. Anyone else hear a voice from 34 last night? The kids were scared. Monica tagged Sarah in the comment, but without making accusations. Sarah closed the app and felt her anger at the hardware and herself return. She was still ashamed of that line from the living room. She felt like the whole block could see them through the crack in the door. At 6, Henry met the lawyer in a cafe on the first floor of the office center. He showed the letter. The lawyer read it and said, "Here is a minimal NDA. It is just to talk. If you go further, separate agreements will begin. The first rule, no transfer of source codes and datasets. The second, no experimental modes that once sounded in your house. The third, if you enter at all, then only with a written ethical regulation, and do not go to the meeting alone. Take technical and legal witnesses." "I'm leaning toward no," Henry said. "Say no today," the lawyer replied. "Or yes, but here's a term sheet. But don't leave it hanging. Hanging around eats the house." At 8, he and Sarah sat on the porch. It was cool, and the neighbors' kids were finishing up their basketball game in the yard. Henry placed his phone face up on the table. "The agency wrote to me," he said. "They're buzzing about the project. I want to say no and close the topic, but I caught myself thinking that it's important to me that I've been noticed. It's like a mark that I didn't do it in vain." Sarah was silent for a long time. "I understand," she said. "It's in your frame of reference. But I don't want to live in a house where we discuss people from Washington every week. I can't stand it." "I can say no now," he said. "But let me read the terms with the lawyer and Priya, and if I say yes to the conversation, it will be on my terms. No home data, no names, no integration with the speakers. Just synthetics in their lab. And that's it, publicly stated boundaries." "I don't even like that," Sarah said. "It's like a door being opened again. And one more thing. If you do go, I'll go to Liz's for a week. I'll need space. I'm saying that up front without making threats." "I hear," he said, "and it hurts me to hear it, but it's better than guessing again." The next day, Henry agreed to a short introductory call. He didn't turn on the camera. 2 people appeared on the screen, a man with a neat haircut who introduced himself as Garrett, and a woman with glasses who was Aisha. They spoke without further ado. "We're looking at ways to speed up post-event interviews," Garrett said. "Your system seems promising as a queuing module. We're not talking about a lie detector. We're talking about attention cues." "I'm only interested in local processing and no recording," Henry replied. And I don't discuss home scripts, only lab ones, without real people at the start. Synthetics, actors, pre-agreed lines. That's acceptable at first, Aisha said, but we'll need real variations of speech. We'll offer compensation and legal protection. Legal protection does not remove the ethical risks, Henry said. I will not give up the names, and I will not give up the model if it is tied to the home patterns. Garrett leaned towards the camera. We understand your fear. On our part, no field work without your command. And honestly, we are not interested in the house, but in your prompting algorithm. It helps the interviewer not to miss moments where it is worth reformulating the question. They ended with, we'll send a draft of the framework agreement. Henry put down his laptop and sat for a long time in the shared conference room of the co-working space. He is called Priya. They say the right words, he said. Attention signals, no cloud. I hear how to do it carefully, and I hear Sarah. If you go, Priya replied, write the terms yourself. Write in an ethics panel and the right to leave at any time without explanation. And add a clause that no domestic incidents can be discussed at meetings. And Henry, think about another twist. Tell them, this is not domestic honesty. This is interviewer training, without the label lie. That's the point, he said. I want to get the product out of the moral courts. That same day, Mark caught him at Phil's. I'm happy for you, Mark said, wasting no time. I know what you're going to say about ethics, and rightly so. But don't destroy value out of fear. Make a deal. Take the money. Move the product to B2B. Shut down the home line. Otherwise, Nextdoor and the neighborhood gossip will bury you. The neighbors are already talking, Henry admitted. Monica came over yesterday. The kids heard the phrase, I'm ready to fail as an entrepreneur. I'm not ready to do that at home again. Then make an adult division, Mark said. Home is no, work is yes, but if you hold the line, you'll survive. In the evening, the honest hour was held in the backyard under the light of landscape lamps. Sarah said bluntly, I'll go to Liz for 3 days if you agree to meet them. This is not a punishment. I need to get out of a situation where someone is always watching me, even if that someone is not there. If I agree, only in the lab, Henry repeated. Without you, without the house, without our data. And I'll sign a participation boundaries document with a lawyer in advance so as not to negotiate with myself. Do it, Sarah said. And before you leave, can you please take the safe to Lisa's storage room? I don't want it in our garage. It makes my heart sink every time. I'll take it, Henry said. The next day, an email arrived from Aisha with a draft of the framework. It was clean and professional. Joint research, no access to personal data, only on provided equipment. The lawyer had marked 2 points in red, right to use results for internal purposes and possibility to offer to purchase the patent. Henry felt his stomach twist. They clearly wanted more than attention signals. He was sitting in the supermarket parking lot, rereading the letter, when Linda called. You asked for an unscheduled Friday, Linda said. I can do it at 3. We will come, he replied. At 3, they sat down on the familiar sofa. Henry laid out everything, the call, the terms, the draft. Sarah listened, her hands in her lap. I'll put it simply, Linda said. You have 2 parallel processes going on right now, restoring trust and a career decision. They can't be mixed. If you sign anything that brings outside voices into the house again, you'll be set back a month. If Henry wants to go into research, let him do it as a separate role, with separate rules. Sarah, with separate boundaries. And for the first steps, live as housemates, if that's easier. I'm going to Liz's for the weekend, Sarah said. Then I'll come back and we'll continue. But if the other voice starts up in my house again, I'll be gone for a long time. I understand, Henry said. After the session, they drove to Liz's. Henry took the safe off the top shelf of the garage and loaded it into the trunk. Liz's living rooms smelled of cinnamon and bleach. Liz said, Leave it with me. He definitely won't talk here. Sarah stayed overnight at her sister's. Henry went home alone. The sounds were louder in the empty house, the refrigerator, the ticking clock. He sat down at the table and opened his laptop. He wrote a letter to Aisha. Thank you for the draft. Conversation is possible only under the following conditions. Only laboratory scenarios without real family data. All processing is local, without recording and without the cloud. No lie detection, only hints to the interviewer. An ethics committee with veto power. The right to terminate participation at any time without explanation. No patent rights, license discussion only after the pilot. No names, no voice activation, only manual start. If this is unacceptable, let's close the topic now. He didn't click send. He closed his laptop, went to the kitchen, got milk from the fridge, poured it into a glass. He returned to the table, opened the letter again, added a line. Home is forever outside this agreement. Then he stopped again. He heard his own fatigue. He understood that the letter was changing their lives in any case. Yes, new people would come in. No, the chance to consolidate the product in another context would be gone. He texted Sarah, I'm sending a letter with strict conditions. If they don't agree, I'm closing the subject. Sarah replied, do it, and tell me when you send it. Henry pressed send. The screen flickered. He exhaled. The house was quiet. For the first time in a week, he didn't feel a voice in the air. He wanted to believe they were holding the line. He knew it was a fragile line. Wednesday morning, Henry woke up to the vibration of his phone, an email from Aisha. Your terms are accepted. Suggest pilot next week in the lab. No cloud, local only. Ethics panel okay. We'll provide a list of actors for the scripts. Below were the calendar slots. He reread them, put the phone on the table, and went to make coffee. The house was empty. Sarah had spent the night at Liz's and promised to return in a day. He wrote to Sarah briefly. They agreed to our framework. The pilot is only within their walls, without the home. If you want, I will slow down. A couple of minutes later came the answer. Do as we agreed. It is important to me that the home remains outside of this forever. He put the mug on the table, opened his laptop, and closed the repository tab. Today, he didn't want to see the code. Today, he wanted the house to be a normal house. During the day, Monica dropped a link to an article into the neighbor's chat. Alexa's new honest skill is gaining popularity. It promises to point out dissinks in conversations. Not a word about Henry, but the idea was familiar. Below, Paul's comment. I installed Honest Own Coach. It's cool how it tells us when we're diverting the conversation. Green light means everything's okay. Yellow means check. Works in whispers. Another neighbor added, be careful, I've loosened my mother-in-law's tongue. That evening, Monica had a backyard with a gas grill, and they had an impromptu potluck. Corn, burgers, lemonade in a glass jar with a spigot. Henry came alone, sat in the shade so as not to discuss the events of the past week. The conversation flowed as usual. School, parking, insurance. At one point, Paul, grinning, said, see how it works. Alexa, turn on Honestone for 5 minutes. The blue circle flashed. Everyone went silent for a second. I don't care where the Hoa picnic is, said neighbor Jennifer. Whisper replied, comment, perhaps a location closer to home is preferred. It is worth checking. I prefer the park by the library, Jennifer said immediately. I didn't want to argue. Everyone chuckled. It seemed harmless. 2 minutes later, Jennifer's husband, Mike, said, I didn't meet with the contractor without you. Pause. The device, without lowering its voice, said, discrepancy detected. Context, renovation. I had a meeting in the Home Depot parking lot yesterday. There was silence. Mike blinked. It was a chance meeting. He came up to me himself. You said you hadn't seen me, Jennifer said quietly. Okay, that's it, Monica intervened. Stop. The session has been stopped, it said. The lemonade stopped pouring. The conversation fell apart. Someone was joking with effort. Someone was looking at their phone. Henry saw the same expression on everyone's faces. Why did we turn this on? He left early. At home, he turned on the kitchen fan to drown out the emptiness. He wrote to Sarah, "The neighbor's built-in skill has already managed to ruin the evening." A couple of minutes later, she replied, "Especially since we keep the house quiet. I'll stop by tomorrow afternoon, pick up a few things, and return to Liz for another night." The next morning, the co-working manager knocked on the open conference room where Henry was sitting. "Hello," he said. "A small favor. The team in the next room wanted to remind residents not to run honest skills in common areas. Yesterday, some freelancer turned it on, and the skills started whispering about late bar bill in their Zoom. They filed a complaint." "I didn't turn it on," Henry said. "I don't mean it was you," the manager replied. "It's just that it's already spreading around the area. Be careful, okay?" Henry nodded. His stomach tightened. He knew his combination was in Liz's safe. But the idea he was pushing was already out there. Anyone could write a skill like that, and people without his limitations were doing it. Liz called at lunchtime. "Listen, don't shout," she began immediately. "Tom opened the safe. He says he just wanted to make sure it was turned off. Then he and his men's club friends finished their beer and decided to play. The box started talking. My guest room turned into an interrogation room. I'm ready to kill him, but I'm telling you, take this thing today." "How did he open the safe?" Henry asked, barely holding on. "You wrote the code on a piece of paper and put it in an envelope for emergencies. Tom found it when he was taking out the trash. He said, I only turned it on for a minute." At the minute, the box loudly announced that his friend had told his wife that he was going for a run, but in fact, he was sitting at the bar. The friend left. His wife called me. I'm ashamed. Sarah heard everything in the other room. She didn't say anything, just packed her things and went to her bedroom. "I'm on my way," Henry said. "It's on me." "It's on Tom," Liz answered harshly. "But it's on your piece of paper, too. Come." Henry arrived in 40 minutes. Liz's house smelled of coffee and the air after a row not a good kind of silence. Tom sat on the edge of the sofa, his head down. "I'm an idiot," he said. "I thought it was a toy. I turned it on and it started. We said, let's be honest, and the speaker, well, you know, I turned it off, but it was too late." "The code was for an emergency," Henry said dryly, "not for look." "It's my fault," Tom repeated. "Take it back. Liz won't let me in again." Sarah came out of the bedroom with a bag. Her face was calm, her eyes were tired. "I'll spend the night at Emily's," she said. "Then I'll come back. I don't want to hear this from Liz again. It wasn't her fault." "I'll take the device to my storage room," Henry said. "No access, no code, no one will turn it on." "Like museums do with dangerous exhibits," Sarah said shortly. "This is the right place." He silently carried the safe to the car. Liz went out onto the porch. "I love you, brother," she said, "but I had a nightmare today. I had two friends yell at me because some idiot decided to play. I have a book club this weekend, and I'm afraid someone will bring the same thing. At least make a post about safety, so people know that honesty isn't background noise in the living room." "I will," Henry said. He took the safe to his house, lowered it into the basement where there were boxes of paint and old skis, and secured it with ties to a metal pipe. He changed the code. He left no papers. At home, he wrote a post on his Medium blog, "How to Safely Handle Honesty Modules." No marketing, just straight-up bullet points. Never turn on in company, don't use with guests. Always turn volume down to a whisper. Don't say activation phrases as a joke. Ban names. Turn off with windows open. And finally, off is best. He sent the link to Mark and Priya. Mark responded with a smiley face, no comment. Priya wrote, "Right. A bit late, but right." In the evening, Monica knocked on the door. She had a phone in her hands. "Sorry for the unannounced warning," she said. "We had a conflict today over this skill. Lara's husband turned it on at dinner. The device blabbed about their mortgage. I told them about your post, but they're not blogging friends. Can you organize a small tech safety meetup at our HOA? No advertising, just as a neighbor. Henry nodded. He didn't like these kinds of meetings, but he knew it would be worse otherwise. Saturday, he said. At the library on the corner. I'll bring printouts. No devices. Sarah returned home closer to night. She sat on the edge of the bed and took off her earrings. She was silent for a while. I don't want to live in a neighborhood where people start writing "let's be honest" on birthday cakes, she said. Today at Liz's, I heard someone else's voice ruin a friendship with one sentence. I know it wasn't your device, it was an outside skill. But the idea is the same. The idea has taken up residence between people. I saw it with Monica, Henry replied. I'll do everything I can to keep it out of our way. Do more than wall yourself off, Sarah said. Tell them no if the pilot is even remotely like what I heard. And Henry, be prepared to shut the project down as a pet project. Completely. I'm ready, he said after a pause. Home, yes. B2B, under an ethical filter, maybe. But home, no. She nodded. On Saturday, about 15 people gathered in the library room. Neighbors, a couple of teenagers with notebooks, Monica and her husband, Jennifer and Mike, a couple of faces from next door. Henry laid out the safe handling sheets, hooked up the projector just for the slides, without sound. He began calmly. I didn't come to sell. I came to explain that this is not a toy. Any honesty prompters are tools that easily become weapons. They should only work with the full consent of everyone and only in a narrow mode. But the best mode for the home is off. The questions started pouring in immediately. Then why is it even available? Mike asked. Because the technology is easy to make, Henry answered honestly. And because people like quick fixes, I can only explain the risks. Your device was talking to Liz yesterday. The woman from the book club raised her hand. Was that your thing? That was my prototype, Henry said. It was turned on without my consent. It was wrong. I took it. It will be stored as dangerous equipment. Write it in big letters, someone said from behind. Dangerous. All right, he replied. After the meeting, Jennifer approached him. I work in an elementary school, she said. Please write a separate text for parents, so that no one brings this to school meetings. You can't imagine what happens when adults accidentally tell the truth in front of children. All right, Henry said. That evening, he sat down at his desk and made a second note, where such systems cannot be used. The list was long: schools, offices, parties, family gatherings, therapy, neighborhood committees, doctor's offices. He looked at the list and realized, almost everywhere. The phone buzzed. An email from Aisha, confirming lab slot for Wednesday. Should I send you passes? Also, you need your position on home use. We're seeing news in the Silicon Valley area. She attached 2 screenshots from next door and the headline of a local site. Voice honesty detectors cause suburban conflict. Henry replied, Home use I'm closing. I'll say it publicly tomorrow. We can only cooperate on the interviewer simulator. If it's important to you, we'll move on. If not, we'll go our separate ways. He pressed send, turned off his laptop, and went into the kitchen. Sarah was standing at the sink. I'll publish the refusal of the home market tomorrow, he said. If I did it, I should announce it. That's right, she said. And it won't bring back what Liz had, but at least it won't make it worse. The house was quiet at night. At dawn, Sarah said, Let's go away for the weekend. No talk about the project. To Santa Cruz, for one day. I need to see something that doesn't talk. Go ahead, he replied. On Saturday, while they were packing their backpacks, the phone rang. An unknown number. Henry didn't pick it up. A minute later, a voicemail came. Mr. Harris, this is Garrett. We have received your response. Please note, we continue to have interest in your technology. We will support your public position on home use. But after the pilot, we will have a patent proposal. He deleted the message, but the gist remained. On the way to the ocean, Sarah said. Remember that any offer is a new door. You have the right not to open it. I remember, he said, and now I have a list of places where the door is closed forever. He looked at his hands on the wheel. They were shaking less than they had been last week. It wasn't a relief. It was a job that sometimes just kept you in place. That same evening, he posted, "Why I'm quitting the home edition of Frank." Date, name, bullet points. Comments started pouring in quickly. Some thanked him, some accused him of breaking integrity. He didn't respond. He did what he could. The house grew quieter again. But Henry knew the technology had been tried in too many places. People would play until they got burned. He couldn't control everything. He could keep the boundaries to himself. He closed his laptop and put a new piece of paper on the refrigerator. Honest hour optional. No devices forever. The next day, a letter arrived from his nephew's school. We kindly ask that parents and visitors not bring voice-activated speech analysis devices to campus. Thank you for your understanding. Henry smiled without joy. It was the right text, and it was a reflection of the week. Sarah came over and put her arm around his shoulders. "We choose silence," she said. "We'll see what happens next." He nodded. They stood in the kitchen with no speakers, no panels, no strips. They would still have to speak, but now it was definitely their voices. On Thursday morning, a courier left a thick envelope with an urgent sticker at the door. Inside was a letter on the contractor's letterhead with a federal domain and a short proposal. Acquire the patent and know-how of the Frank project. Exclusive assignment of rights. Remuneration and amount with 6 zeros. Accompanying confidentiality agreement for 25 years. Pilot next week at our center. Enclosed was a list of abbreviations and procedures, where every word required a lawyer. Henry sat down at the table and reread the terms. He liked the clarity of the big numbers. The wording "exclusive concession" scared him. It meant that the decision on how exactly to use the technology would not be his. He put the letter on the table, made coffee, and typed to Sarah. They sent an official patent purchase. I'm not signing without a conversation. Let's discuss it tonight. The answer came, let's discuss it. I'm in a meeting until 7. At 2 o'clock, he was sitting in a conference room with a lawyer in San Jose. There was a whiteboard on the wall, folders on the table. Priya was connected via video. Let's look at the points, the lawyer said. Assignment of rights is not a license. It's forever. You'll keep the author's name, but not the influence. Then there's the point about derivative technologies. If they modify your algorithms, you're out of luck. The point about secrecy level. You can't publish anything without approval. And most importantly, the rights for any security-related purposes. That's a broad formulation. Translate this into ordinary language, Henry asked. You give everything and hope that people will make the right decisions in the future, the lawyer replied. Priya frowned. If you give it away, you won't be able to get it back home, even if tomorrow you decide you were wrong. No home versions, of course, but no open research either. Henry clenched his fingers. What if we insist on a field license? For example, only interviewer training, only local processing, no domestic use, no names. It's not about insisting, the lawyer said. They write it straight, concession. They want it clean and simple, so as not to have to sort out each point in a year. After the meeting, he went outside and sat on the steps. The sun was shining on the glass of the neighboring house, and a guy with a pizza box walked by. The phone vibrated. Mark. I read it, said Mark, wasting no time. This is your chance. You close the domestic market right. You transfer to B2B great. Money on the table, you take it. And so that they don't get into the domestic, you write in the letter. No implementations for everyday life. And that's it. That's it, Henry replied. A concession is not a treaty between equals. It's a one-sided story. Do you want to spend 10 years writing posts about risks, or do you want to close the mortgage and give Sarah's words, I need a quiet house, a real foundation? Mark spoke harshly. I'm not talking about cynicism. I'm talking about a grown-up step. Sell, Save the team for new things. There's no team, Henry reminded her. I've got Priya and a couple of consultants, and a house where we're trying to live. Mark exhaled. Then so be it. I will support any decision you make. But if you refuse, close the repository. Don't leave any loose ends. That evening, Sarah returned tired. They drove to downtown Palo Alto to avoid talking at home. They found a free table at a quiet Mexican restaurant. Henry placed a copy of the letter on the table. They want the patent, he said. The whole thing. With the promise of funding for adaptation to safety issues. No right to publish, no influence on final decisions. Sarah read slowly, following the lines with her finger. This is what Linda warned us about, she said. Two parallel processes that can't be mixed. You're going to make a decision now, and it's going to bring someone else's rules into our house again. I can't stand another week of people with acronyms opening the door. I can refuse, Henry said, but I'll remember that the money was on the table, and that I didn't take it. I understand that, but it's more important to me that you choose a house, not a story about chance. If you want to work, work in the lab according to your rules, but the patent, no. And one more thing. I want us to get rid of the hardware, the whole set, not on the shelf, not in Liz's safe, but for recycling. Are you serious? Yes. I'm tired of looking back at the cabinets. The next day, he took the boxes to an electronics recycling center in San Carlos. An employee rolled out a cart. Laptops, servers, cameras, batteries separately, he said calmly. Sarah stood nearby. Her face was calm, not angry. She wanted to close the story. Henry put the old prototype case, a set of microphones, 3 boards, 2 hard drives on the cart. He kept only the laptop with the code for himself to close the project cleanly. The employee in the vest looked carefully. If there are any storage devices, sign a consent for destruction. We will shred them on site. I'll sign, Henry said. As the plastic and metal disappeared into the car, Sarah exhaled. Thank you, she said quietly. I needed this. On the way home, I received a letter from Aisha, confirming the slot. We are ready to discuss the patent issue, but the basic position is the same, concession. We will give an addendum excluding domestic use. A minute later from Garrett, decision is desirable within 72 hours. We need budget planning. In the evening at Linda's, they sat side by side, like schoolchildren. Henry laid it out. Linda listened calmly. My opinion, she said. If you give up the patent, you will live with this decision every day. Even if the money helps, the feeling of loss of control will remain. With your history, this is dangerous. You will start compensating, building regimes again, checking again. If you do not give in, there will be regret about the money, but you will still have the opportunity to choose. Choose the regret you can live with. After the session, they went outside. There was a cool breeze. Sarah said, if you sign the concession, I'll go to Liz for a month. This is not a punishment. I need distance. I don't want other people's rules to enter our home through you. I don't want you to leave, he said. Then don't sign. And delete the code after the pilot if you realize it's going to go there anyway. On Friday morning, Henry met Priya at the campus cafe near the university. They sat by the window. I'll help with the pilot, Priya said. But if you give up the patent, I'll leave. I won't work in a mode where everything has been decided without us. And one more thing. Remove meaningful threads, even from the archive. Don't keep them in reserve. I understand, he said. At lunchtime, he came to the co-working space, locked himself in the conference room, and opened the letter to Aisha. He wrote a reply. On the patent issue, no. Only a limited, irrevocable, non-exclusive license for use within the walls of your lab is possible for a period of 6 months, for use in interviewer training, without the right to sublicense, without access to source code, without alienation of the patent. Home use is prohibited forever. He sent it. His heart beat steadily. An hour later, a short one came. We will discuss it. Our basic condition is the same. In the evening, Mark called. You shot yourself in the foot. he said without malice. But maybe that's exactly what you need. Not everything is measured in dollars. Keep your back. If they refuse, do a new project, just without the speakers. No speakers, Henry repeated. On Saturday, they went to the farmer's market in Mountain View. They got coffee, tomatoes, and a loaf of bread. Sarah held his arm. They barely talked about the project. On the way back, Henry said, "If they stick to their guns, I'll close the topic. The pilot, yes, if the conditions are met. Then that's it." "I hear you," Sarah said. "And I have a commitment too. I'm not going back to texting Trevor. I've already closed the chat. I don't want to live in a double-door mode." At home, Henry turned on his laptop and opened the repository. Deleted all branches with hands-free, dev_override, entity names. Moved the code to an archive without external access. Wrote a note to himself. After the pilot, the final decision on the public fate of the project. Closed. On Sunday, he received a letter from Aisha. "Our legal department insists on a concession. The maximum is a preliminary pilot license with an obligation to conclude a concession after successful tests. Without this, the budget will not be approved." Henry felt the familiar pressure of a deadline. The clock is ticking. 72 hours. Sarah was cooking dinner. She was cutting greens, putting plates on the table. He put the phone next to her. "They want a concession after the pilot," he said. "It's the same thing, only later." "Then the answer is the same," she said. "We don't change the rules because we're given a deadline." He sat down at the table. They ate in silence. After dinner, Sarah said, "Let's do this together. Open your laptop. Write no. No evasive language." He opened it. He wrote, "Thank you for your interest. We do not agree to the transfer of rights either now or based on the results of the pilot. We are ready to discuss only a temporary, limited, free license for a test in your premises under the conditions of the ethical protocol. If this is unacceptable, we close the topic." He signed. His finger hovered over send. "Press," Sarah said. He pressed. The screen flickered. The letter was gone. 20 minutes later, Garrett responded. "Accepted. Then we're shutting down the patent negotiations. The pilot invitation remains open for a week. After that, the window closes." Henry sat with the phone in his hand. It felt like a compromise, but it wasn't. He realized they were going to stay where they were. Either he'd use the week to test and close, or he'd go in a direction that Sarah wouldn't accept. At night, he woke up from the silence. He got up, went to the kitchen, and poured water. He looked at the empty space where the water pump had once stood. It was strangely quiet inside. He opened his laptop and wrote another letter to himself. On Monday, call Linda and recompile the house contract. The goal is to live for a month without checking and without negotiations. If we can handle it, we'll move on. If not, we'll honestly discuss a break. In the morning, a message came from Priya. "I'm with you on the pilot. But after that, decide whether to live with this code. I don't want to be the person who launches a voice into someone else's living room again." Henry replied, "I understand. Thank you." He closed the phone. Sarah woke up, went into the kitchen, and leaned against the doorframe. "Well?" she asked. "Pilot, yes. Concession, no." After the pilot pause, "And there is no iron at home," he said. "It's a deal," Sarah said. "If you find yourself drawn back to the acronym SWARM after the pilot, tell me before you press yes. I'll be gone for a while, but I want to know before, not after." "I'll tell you," he replied. They had oatmeal and coffee for breakfast. It was a normal Monday. Ahead was a week where every step could ruin their deal again. But for now, he held the line, and he knew that next would be the final test, not for the device, but for them. Wednesday began at the gate at the Menlo Park research site. A pass, a badge saying guest, a briefing about where the restrooms were and where photography was prohibited. Priya had arrived early and was already standing at the glass wall of the lab with a tablet. "The scenarios are simple," Aisha said. leading them to a room with acoustic finishing. The actors act out short, everyday dialogues. Your system works locally, without recording. All external channels are turned off. The ethics panel is in the next room. The connection is through the glass. No names, Henry reminded, and manual launch only from this tablet. No voice activation. I confirm, Aisha nodded. We are testing only interviewer hints and plus mode, confirmation of clear phrases. If you see a risk somewhere, we stop. The first block was dry and correct. Two actors argued over who would buy gasoline. The system occasionally whispered through the local speaker. Comment, perhaps it is worth clarifying the budget, or fact confirmed, the nearest gas station is preferable. The panel ticked safe. Priya recorded delays and noise measurements. During the third scenario, where the actors were acting out, keeping track of expenses on vacation, the network indicator in the control room began to blink. A technician in headphones raised his hand. We have a subnet update. It's not related to your box, just a system patch on the router. Your network is autonomous. Let's stop for a minute, Henry suggested. No need, the technician replied. It's the background. They continued, and after 20 seconds, the speaker in the test room suddenly turned up the volume to maximum and said in a strange voice, not a whisper. Discrepancy detected. Context, past promises. Subject, Friday night. Clarify the reason for the discrepancy. The actors froze. Aisha waved her hand. Stop. The speaker did not stop. Discrepancy detected. Context, finance. Source, card, transaction. Henry pressed the red button on the tablet. Nothing. Priya was already reaching for the power cable. The technician shouted, "Don't pull it out. The logs are being recorded." "The recording is off," Henry replied sharply. "There are no clouds here." The speaker continued. Comment. Possibly the underlying theme is fatigue from repeated questions. Reformulation recommended. Aisha turned to the technician. Turn off the power at the stand. The lights went out in the control room. The fans went silent. The speaker, connected to a separate source, held the sound for a second, then cut off. Silence fell. The actors exchanged glances. Priya looked at Henry. It wasn't our code. The wording wasn't from our package. Source, map, appeared there. We didn't write that. The technician was already typing on the keyboard. The patch affected the bridge to the service network, and a couple of packets flew into your subnet. You have an autonomous circuit, but the audio gateway by default listens to the local broadcast for emergency messages. Your module could have accepted someone else's channel as its own. What is this foreign channel? Henry asked. Office compliance tips from another lab, the technician muttered. They have their own project, not yours. Shouldn't have matched. Aisha looked straight ahead. This is our mistake. We promised autonomy. We are preparing a report and turning off all bridges. Henry, Priya, do you want to continue? No, Henry said. Stop for today. This is not the risk we discussed. They signed the stop protocol. Aisha suggested calling a lawyer. Henry refused. I'll write it myself. We need to catch our breath. In the parking lot, Priya said, this failure will show the main thing. Your idea only works in a sterile box. In the real world, there will always be a bridge. Today, the bridge is their subnet, Henry said. Yesterday, it's a neighbor's skill. Tomorrow, someone will say, let's be honest on the air. I understand. He called Sarah. Pilot stopped for wrong channel. I'm going home. She replied, okay. We have HOA at 7 today. Monica asked you to come in for 5 minutes and just go over the rules. Henry nodded to himself and drove off. There were 3 hours left until evening. He thought that the hardest part of the day was already behind him. At 7 o'clock in the evening, residents from several streets gathered in the hall of the community center. Plastic chairs, a thermos of water, Henry's printouts with a heading, where these systems cannot be used. On stage were 2 HOA chairmen and a local volunteer named Ray. Ray brought a large laptop and a portable speaker to demonstrate a safe version of someone else's skill. I'll tell you right away, I'm not the author of this skill, Ray warned. But the version I installed doesn't announce names, works only on command, and doesn't have network access. I want to show you what it looks like and why it's best to turn it off at home. Henry stepped out for a minute, repeated his 5 points, and finished with the phrase, "The best mode is off. If you do turn it on, do it only with full consent of everyone and in a whisper. Any jokes with activation are evil." Ray nodded and walked over to the laptop. "A test phrase without people," he said, launching a demo script. The speaker beeped. At that moment, someone at the end of the room turned on the broadcast of the meeting for those who had connected online and opened the sound on the TV at home, leaving the volume at maximum. Ray's words flew into the air. On several streets, where Alexas stood in the living room and listened to the TV, clone skills with cheap triggers were activated. Almost immediately, Monica ran into the room, whose house had the water heater turned on. Henry's phone was flooded with messages. "Someone's talking in my living room. Can he hear it? How do I stop it?" Ray turned pale. "I didn't turn on the network mode. This is not my speaker." Voices came from different directions through open windows and from phones connected to surveillance cameras. Comment: "Perhaps you prefer not to go to your parents." Inconsistency detected. "I'm in a traffic jam. Localization does not match." Fact confirmed. You are tired of budget discussions. People jumped up. Someone called home. The HOA chairman slammed his palm on the table. "Everyone turn off your microphones, please. Ray, stop the show." "I already turned everything off," Ray said breathlessly. "It's not from here." Henry's next-door feed bounced around. "Someone is yelling from my TV. The kids are scared. How do I turn off Honestome Coach?" Someone wrote a tutorial. "Alexa, disable skill." A few minutes later, the cloud provider turned off the problematic skill centrally. The sounds died down, but the aftertaste remained. The room buzzed. Someone blamed Ray. Someone blamed Henry. Someone shouted, "This is the end of privacy." Henry said into the microphone, "I am not the author of that skill. I am stopping in the home direction. But even if I could press the cancel everywhere button, I would not have the right to do so. Everyone turns it on themselves. You now have 2 steps. Turn off the skill and turn off the announcement in the columns. I wrote the instructions. They are on your sheets. If necessary, I will approach everyone." He walked around the room for an hour, looking for the same 3 settings on people's phones. Skills, disable, announcements off. Ray silently helped. Someone left, slamming the door. Someone said, "Thank you." The local police chief came in, looked, nodded. "There's no lineup here, just panic." That was the end of it. He and Sarah got home at almost 10. It was quiet inside. They didn't have a speaker. But in the house next door, voices could be heard through the thin walls, someone turning on the news, someone arguing. Sarah poured water. "I understand that you had no hand in this today," she said, "but I don't want to live in a place where every stranger's microphone makes us go nuts. It's not about you. It's about the context." "I know," Henry said. "The lab was in trouble today, too, because of their bridges. I'm increasingly thinking that the project needs to end, not just at home, in general." "And the pilot?" Sarah asked. "We stopped it, and I'm not sure I want to go back. They'll say they fixed the network and call me on Friday. And I look at this room in the HOA, and I understand that even a perfect network won't fix the overall damage." Sarah sat down in a chair. "The question is simple. Do you choose to close it, or do you leave the loophole for later?" He opened his laptop. A calendar with the note "Pilot Transfer" was blinking on the screen. He selected the event and pressed Delete. Then he opened the letter to Aisha. "We had an incident in the area today. I am terminating my participation in the pilot and closing the Frank project completely. Please remove me from any processes and destroy copies on your side. I am ready to come and draw up a destruction report." He pressed Send. Sarah watched in silence. He opened the repository, typed in the command to archive and delete remote branches. Almost automatically, he wrote another blog entry. Why I'm closing Frank for good. No drama. Facts, lessons, list of risks, list of prohibitions. The phone vibrated. Aisha responded quickly. We understand. We are initiating the closure process. A separate letter will be sent regarding disposal and reporting. We regret today. A short one from Garrett followed. Sorry, the door remains open for you. Henry closed his laptop and sat down next to Sarah. Is that all? She asked. According to the code, yes. In life, I don't know. They sat in silence. Someone was arguing about the children's section through the wall. A car started outside. The neighbor's cat walked along the porch and scratched at the door, a familiar sound that suddenly didn't irritate. We can continue therapy, Sarah said, without the honest hours on the schedule. Once a week with Linda and short conversations without a schedule, and a month without any techno improvements. At all. No fitness trackers, no smart lamps. I agree, Henry said, and if I ever want to write something for home again, I'll come to you first, not to the repository. And one more thing. She looked straight ahead. Recovery is not a competition. If I lose my temper and ask for a break, you don't turn on the control mechanisms. You just take a break. I will, he said. I'll say something too, she added. I'm not going back to Trevor. Not because I'm afraid of you, and not because it's right. But because I chose to try with you. If it doesn't work out, I'll be honest and leave. That should be in the rules too. He nodded. Then let's rewrite our sheet, he suggested. Let's remove honest hour. Let's leave therapy and no devices. And let's add right to pause without questions. Sarah picked up a marker and went to the refrigerator. They turned the old list over and wrote it all over again. No complicated phrases, no percentages. Late in the evening, Henry went out onto the porch. The sky was darker than usual, but it didn't matter anymore. He sat down on the step. Sarah followed him out, brought a blanket, and laid it next to him. Can we really do it? He asked. I don't know, she replied. But we've taken 2 steps today. That's enough for one evening. They sat in silence. The sound of a passing car cut through the street. A door slammed somewhere. These were ordinary things that did not require commentary or hints. The next day, a letter came from Linda. Ready to see you on Friday. Topic, new rules and working with pauses. Another one from Aisha with a device disposal report and a note that copies of the algorithms had been deleted. Henry forwarded it to Sarah. She replied, Okay, we're living under the new scheme from Friday. That evening, he met Mark at Phil's. He told him that he had closed the project. Mark shrugged. Your life is your product. You chose. If you want money, let's think about something else. Without speakers and without truth on schedule. Learn to live without a gong, then you'll return to the table. That's exactly what I'm doing, Henry said. When he got home, Sarah was cooking dinner. They spoke briefly and simply. There were no whispers between sentences. This was not a victory. This was the beginning of another version of their days. The open ending didn't look like a scene, but like a plan for the week. Therapy on Friday, a trip to the ocean on Sunday, cleaning out the garage without safes or boxes. No activation phrases, no prompts, just their voices and pauses that could be tolerated. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.